Hey everybody, this is Andrea Jenson from the Cash Flow CFO, and you're listening to the Cash Flow CFO Podcast, the show that explores the financial side of running a business for people who want to maximize profitability and scale with confidence. If you want to make smart financial decisions based on data and put more of your hard-earned profits into your pocket, this is the podcast for you. This episode of the Cash Flow CFO podcast is brought to you by the Cash Flow CFO. Did you know that on average, business owners have up to 84% of their personal net worth tied up in their business? Our virtual CPAs and CFOs, as well as accounting and bookkeeping experts, empower business owners just like you to make big leaps that help them maximize profitability and scale with confidence. Visit thecashflowcfo.com for more information, and thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, it's Andrea, and our guest for today is Tina Forsyth. Tina is a pioneer in online business, having originated the role of OBM and founded the International Association of Online Business Managers and the Certified OBM training in 2009. As a certified consultant, Tina brings over 16 years of experience running her certification and working with over 1,000 students. That's amazing. She now helps other seasoned entrepreneurs turn their IP into a legacy through creating certification and licensing programs. Welcome to the show, Tina.
Thanks for having me here, Andrea.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk with you. I work with so many different business owners, and we're always talking about assets in the business, building assets, carving out assets if there's, a sale that's coming up, and having your IP be its own asset in your business, I think is so super sexy. So I'd love to talk about that. But before we do, tell me a little bit about how did you get started in this world?
Yeah, well, how I got started in the online world at large was I discovered the coaching industry, like the life, business, et cetera, coaching industry back in around 2000. And I took coach training at the time, and I hung my shingle out there as a coach. I think I called myself a business, life, and career coach. Like I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I had like every title on the business card. But I struggled to find clients. And I had an opportunity come up to work with what was at the time a very large coach training organization founded by Thomas Leonard, who some folks may actually know and remember as really the founder of the coaching industry at large. He unfortunately passed away in 2003. But I had an opportunity to come up to work in his training organization. And it was there that I really fell in love with this, like, what does it take behind the scenes to run and grow a business? And it's something that comes very naturally to me, something I really enjoy doing. So when I moved on from that company, I started to do higher level work with other coaches and online folks at the time. And again, this is like over 20 years ago now. It's kind of crazy to think about. It's been that long. But with other coaches and other trainers and folks out there who were looking for higher level support in their business. And at that time, the role of a virtual assistant did exist. That was something that was out there already. But I knew that the way I was working with my clients, the level that I was supporting them, and really how we were partnering together more, it wasn't like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. It was like, no, we were really partnering together to run and grow their business. I knew that was different than what a lot of, other virtual assistants and such were doing or were known for doing. So that's where I, together with my friend Andrea Lee, who is still a good friend of mine, we coined the phrase online business manager to really distinguish the level of work that we were doing at the time. And so I worked one-on-one with my clients as an OBM for a number of years. And what started happening around, along the way, people started to come to me from two sides of the coin. They were coming from the business owner who was running a business and going, Tina, I need someone who does what you do. Where do I find somebody who does what you do? I was just working one-on-one with clients. I was working independently. And so because I was full, it's like, I didn't know where to point them to. I didn't have anybody else I trusted that I could point them to. And likewise, I was starting to have more folks from the service provider side who were maybe VAs or other types of professionals looking to come online, who are saying like, Tina, I want to do what you do. I want to actually, work with clients this way. And so that interest combined with, for me personally, just, I like to say a little bit of my business exists because I got bored and because I got annoyed. That's maybe an interesting way to look at it. But I personally was getting a little bored of the work I was doing one-on-one with clients. It was like, okay, I'd been doing it about 6 years, give or take. And it was like, oh, okay, what else do I want to do with this here? And I was getting annoyed because I started to see other people out in our online space start calling themselves OBM, but they weren't doing it right. Like they were essentially still operating as a virtual assistant. They weren't bringing the level that how I define the role to the table. And so it was those two things combined where first I wrote my book, aptly called Becoming an Online Business Manager, a very obvious name. I wrote that book and published it back in 2008. And I thought at the time that would be it. It was like, okay, I wrote a book. Anybody who wants to be an OBM, go read the book and you're on your way. Like I didn't actually have big plans with that book. But what happened very quickly is people were reading the book and they were like, we want more. We want more of this. And so part of the decision for me was this space of, okay, which direction do I want to go in from a business model perspective? I could have gone the agency route, like, all right, I'm going to hire and train my own team of online business managers, and then they can go out and work with clients and so on. I could have gone the agency route, or the certification route was the other option that came up where, training and certifying folks, but they're going out and working independently with their own clients. And for me, I had actually had a virtual assistant agency along the way in that journey. And I always like to say, like, I like people, I love people, but I'm not like a huge fan of having a great big team. So also the other aspect of this was because of what this OBM role had been for me personally, I really wanted to empower others to, especially at that time, to take this like operations, administrative, tech, whatever skill set that they were bringing to the table and giving them a path to build a business, to create their own livelihood on their terms, essentially. Because especially in those days in the online space, it was all about the coachy coach, the trainers, like the front and center and on stage people. There wasn't as much for other than becoming a virtual assistant, which of course is a great role and a great thing. And it's still very much needed in the world today. We always need our doers in the mix. I was really inspired by, I want to create something that allows other people who are like me to have an opportunity to really create something for themselves. My kids were born in 2006, 2008, and the work I had been doing all those years really allowed me to like be at home with my kids, have flexibility, freedom, like all of these things. And so I chose the certification path as the path. And that's where in 2009, the online business manager certification and the association that you mentioned, those two things were launched together hand in hand and continue to grow until this day.
That's great. And I love that you followed the demand, followed the path, and let the market speak to you instead of, I see a lot of times business owners create in a bubble and then they take it to market and it kind of falls flat. So I think that was really a really smart path to go down and just kind of go, all right, the demand's there. I'm going to meet the demand and create what they're asking for.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. And if I hadn't, and it was this mix of like, what's the demand and what do I want for myself too? Because even to this very day, Andrea, I'll have people say to me, oh my gosh, Tina, have you ever thought of, having your own OBM agency? It's like, well, yes, I have, but I don't want to. It's like, I know I could, and I'm sure it would, be very successful in whatever way, shape, or form. But it's like, but I personally don't want that. So it is really important to like, what's the demand? What are people tapping into? And the other piece of this, I think that's really important, like when you're talking about building assets in your business, is I probably realized in hindsight that I had created assets for myself, and through the form of intellectual property for the most part in the type of work that I do. But it's not like I set out, even when I started the OBM certification, it wasn't, I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm still going to be doing this 16 years down the road. It was really like, okay, let's do this. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was making it up as I go. Like I really, I lovingly like to say I've made every mistake you can make in the book with certification, because it's an easy model to mess up if we're not careful and purposeful. But it wasn't until I was further along the way where it was like between the book, writing the book is what really, that first step of like formulating my expertise. When I wrote the book, it forced me to really be like, well, what am I doing? How am I doing this? What does this look like? It was really getting that all laid out. And then the book is what became the certification and training. It was built off of that. And it's very much evolved and such over the years as things have changed and the industry has changed. But it is really, when we're talking about this idea of like building assets and really being able to recognize what we've created in our businesses, I like to say if we are someone who has found a really effective way of doing something, that we created ourselves too. Like it's something we've developed and created, and we know that it works. It's like there's something to pause and look at there, because that might have a lot more value than we even realize.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think you said it so well. There's so many different business models you can choose. And it's really looking at what is going to be a solid, profitable business model, and also line up with my values and what I want to do at this stage of my life. Because, with little kids and you're in that phase, you want to have time freedom, right? And so you still want to have a model that's profitable and supporting you, but, and it'll ebb and flow, right? As you, the entrepreneur, move through your phases of life, what your business looks like can be wildly different as well. And you can keep stacking, right? Which is what I love that you did, right? You just kept stacking on top of it, and it grew into something, so much more.
And another thing that happened along the way, so I led ran, marketed, delivered, etc., with my team, the support of my team as well too. I was the only trainer, the only person running our certification program for about the first 9-ish, I guess it's officially about 9 years. And again, along the way, I got bored. Again, at one point it was like, okay, I love that. It was an interesting dilemma, because it's like, I love my community. I love my certified OBMs. I love everything that this is about. But if I have to lead that training again one more time, where I found myself I'm saying the same things over and over again, like it just, personally, I got a little bored again. And it was really like, oh, what do I do now? Like it was such an interesting dilemma, because by no means was I going to throw the business out the window or anything like that. Like it wasn't that kind of consideration. But what came up around that time, I had a couple of people from within the community approach me, and they were like, Tina, would you ever consider licensing other people to train the certification? I was like, oh, again, coming to me with that, right? It wasn't something I was thinking of at the time, but it definitely was a ding, 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 because I'm like, oh, okay. And that very quickly became another part of my model, which is we have our OBM certification, but I also have licensed trainers who they are the ones now that market, fill, and teach the certification program. So I haven't actually marketed, filled, or taught my own version of the certified OBM training since 2018. Yeah, it would have been 2018 when the licensed trainers came on board. And that's been another beautiful part of the model. I will tell you, I've had to learn some big and painful lessons with that model, because there's, some things that that happened along the way that were like eek and yikes and not fun to deal with and all of that kind of stuff. But it's also been a really cool model because it took me out of the things that I wasn't loving anymore at that point. And it also created these really cool opportunities for my trainers where they want to be out there. They want to be training. They love what this is about. They love supporting students, all of that. The trainers lead the training program, and then people still come into the association to actually become certified. And so that model's been really great as well, because it's at that point that it really freed me up too from the day-to-day of running that business. And that's also what led me into having, for my own personal time, because I had more time and energy myself, to be able to help. And really now I'm very focused on helping other experts, coaches, authors, et cetera, create and develop their own certification and licensing programs, because my certification doesn't need a bunch of my time at this point, like, a handful of hours a week with certain things that I'm involved in, and certain projects require me to plug in a bigger way. But there's something about this idea too of when we've created something that has value. Yes, that's part of it, like recognizing the value of an asset that we've created, even if it's IP. Like, it doesn't need to be, oh, look, I created a new stapler or something. It doesn't need to be a product, like a tangible product. It doesn't even need to be software or anything like that. Those things are great too. But it's also like, who else might want to be a part of this in some way? And how do we come together in a way that's really mutually beneficial for the people we're partnering with? Like, I look at my licensed trainers, those are essentially partnerships with them, where it's like, there's benefit on both sides for us. And at the same time, it's no longer just the quote unquote Tina show, because that's something I got tired of along the way too. I don't know if I'm just a little bit rebellious, or I have no idea what it is, but there's a part of me that's like, don't put me in this box. Like, sometimes personally, it's like, no, I don't want to be in here. And it's also allowed me and allowed our Certified OBM brand to become like, oh, that's a brand that stands on its own. Like, depending, how long I've known people, I'm still very associated with it. But it's also at the point too where people may know of and or work with or hire certified OBMs or whatever who have no clue who I am.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic, right?
It is a very good thing. It's an interesting ego journey, I will say, along the way. That part of it's a little bit of a challenge. But it also is like, there's another level of freedom in that we don't often get, especially from like training, coaching, service, et cetera, based businesses, where a lot of times we are the face and the hub of everything.
Start scaling with confidence today. The Cash Flow CFO is a full-service accounting and fractional CFO firm. So it goes without saying that our financial experts are phenomenal at number crunching. But more than that, they are expert communicators who will connect all those complicated financial dots in a way that just makes sense. We don't wait in the wings and check in every so often either. With our boutique approach, we position ourselves front and center, watching over every dollar that comes in and out of your business as if it was our own. So if your business is making money and you're ready to take it to the next level, but you're not sure you completely understand your numbers, and you're looking for that trusted guide to help you build a roadmap to reach your financial goals, it sounds like we would be a great fit. Visit thecashflowcfo.com and let's get started empowering you to build and scale your business the way you want to today.
I'm going to pause you right there, because what you just said is so very, very important for all the business owners that are listening. The whole goal of creating your business, first of all, your business is an asset, right? And you're creating all these other assets within the business, whether it's your IP, your process, your team, your, delivery, all of those things. But the whole goal of creating this asset is that it's transferable at some point in the future, right? So whether you choose to, sell it, pass it down to a child or, family member, or whatever it may be, you want something that is team led and managed. And and this is the perfect example of a lot of business owners say, but I'm the face of the business. I am the business, right? We think of like a Tony Robbins or any of those that are like the brand is wrapped around an individual. This is a perfect example. Tina has been able to create from that same model, essentially. You've created a team managed and led company because you just nailed it on the head when you said, if they don't know me from way back when, they don't know who I am. They know the brand, the OBM brand and the online business manager certification. That is so fantastic. And that is worth like a pause for everybody that's listening to wrap their brains around, because not very many people that build a brand around themselves are able to accomplish that.
Well, and I've always said too, and again, I say these things with all the love in my heart because I've been in this industry a long time and I've created programs this way too. But there's that option, say, for example, if somebody's a coach or a trainer, it's like, okay, yes, you can do the one-to-many in the sense of, it's me and I can bring a whole bunch of people in my program, or I can lead a whole bunch of whatever. But it's exactly what you said, Andrea. It's still all about me. And that's something I feel like we don't even talk about or doesn't get recognized enough in this journey where, okay, I could be making a whole bunch of money. I could have a lot of people in my team helping me out and supporting and even like leading calls and whatever. But when a brand is built around us, then we're still the one carrying the weight of that thing. And that's the part that gets exhausting. Like in my own personal experience, it's like, like God bless Tony Robbins, it's just whatever, don't know the guy obviously, but you see what he's done over the years. And it's like, here he is at this like pinnacle of success, so to speak. But even the coaches and such on his team, just from what I've seen, I haven't looked at it in depth, but even the coaches on his team are called Tony Robbins coaches. It's like, that like, if you're still the hub of the brand, the expertise, the whatever, then that's pretty darn hard. And I know you're so much more in the selling world than I am, but it's also like, how do you sell a business?
Yeah.
That's got someone's name on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. You can either go this route, like what you did, or the other option is, for the majority of the time, their only option is an ESOP, right? Where they're selling it back to the company, because it doesn't have that transferable value that someone else can step in and have it be, a brand that they're buying.
And this again is part of why I have a little graphic I like to share with folks sometimes where it's like this difference of, instead of it's just me, one to many with like as many people around me as possible, it's like the certification model is, here's me, here's the people I certify, and then they are the ones out there doing all the things they're doing in the world. And that's where, like at this stage in the game, we have trained and certified it's around 1,100 people at this stage over the years, and those certified OBMs have gone and served I don't even know what the number would be, like tens of thousands of people at this stage in the game. It's like, there's no way if I had gone the agency route that would have been true. There's just no way, not to mention that would have been a business that I personally probably wouldn't have enjoyed running. I love the agency model. Don't get me wrong. It's like alongside certification, it's definitely my favorite model. But again, it really is like, it's a whole other ball game. And when people have created something, most of the folks I work with on the certification side, like if they're looking to develop certification or licensing or a combination of those things, they're really often coming from this place of twofold, right? Like for themselves personally, there's other things I want to get into. I'm looking for some freedom. I'm looking at, I want to retire or maybe semi-retire or whatever that is. And then on the other side of the coin, they recognize, okay, what I've created works and I want to see it out there in as big of a way as possible. Like I want people to have more access to what I've created. I want people to experience this in some way, shape, or form because I know how valuable it is. Like there's a big vision, mission component that comes in a lot of times with certification. And that doesn't have to be some giant, I'm looking to change the world mission, right? I mean, like our certified OBMs, that's a pretty niche world. Like nobody's waking up in the morning and being like, whoa, OBMs changing. Like, I don't know. It is what it is. It's operations. It's great. Those who love doing it, of course, we love it, but it's not something that's all like, stars and woo and all this kind of fancy stuff. It's like sometimes the simplest things we've created actually become the best types of certifications out there. Mm-hmm. And they can be so valuable for other people to have access to this.
Absolutely. So what would you say are some of those first steps? Like say somebody's listening and they're like, oh, this sounds like it would be a perfect next step for me and my business. What are some of those first foundational pieces that they should consider or start doing?
Yeah, I would say as a very first step is to really gather up and start to consider what your existing assets are. Like when I work with folks in my programs, that's one of the first things I give them as a bit of homework is like, gather up your asset library. And especially too, if you're somebody who's been doing what you're doing for a long time, like there's times I'll work with folks that are like, okay, I know this is what I'm creating. This is what I want it to be. Like they're crystal clear. And then there's other times where people are like, oh my gosh, I have all this stuff and I don't even know which one it could be. And so either way, we can land in the right spot. But just to first start to really look at, I have a prerequisite for certification, meaning when somebody's ready for it, it's two things that I have as a prerequisite. Number one is it's your own proprietary stuff that you've created, right? Your own frameworks, methodology, intellectual property, whatever we want to call it. It needs to be your stuff. Like you can't go certify people in things that you didn't create. And it needs to be proven for at least 3 years. And 3 years meaning that you've been utilizing it based on the promise that you want to make to somebody. So if you're developing something that, say, is a business kind of opportunity, like OBM is essentially a business opportunity. It's like, hey, learn this, create your own, freelance contractor business or agency business as an OBM. Because I had successfully done that as a business, well, probably about 6 years before I started my certification, it's like I knew it worked because I'd already lived it. Some people are creating methodologies or things that are not business building opportunities, but they might be frameworks or methodologies that might be used like internally in companies or different things like that. But we do need to prove that it works. And that's the other part of it, depending where you're at in the journey. Like I have this question come up from folks from time to time when they hear me talk about this, like, Tina, can I fast track that 3 years? I mean, we're in the online space or anything about, especially the entrepreneurial, et cetera, space is like, do it, move fast, do it now, et cetera. Like, can I skip those 3 years? And by all means, believe me, there are certifications out there that do not have that in place, right? Like there's people, that will create things relatively quickly. But part of how I look at that is, well, would you want to go be certified in something that hasn't been proven yet? Like, no. And prove, I say 3 years because we need to be able to ride the wave a little bit of all this stuff. I mean, if we know anything from the past 5 years in particular, since the COVID era hit us, it was just like you can have wee and woo and wee. I mean, it needs to be proven in a way that wasn't just, whoa, this worked and I'm 6 months, woohoo.
Right.
So that's another thing. Like if you have your own methodology or you're starting to really develop that, focus on proving it for at least 3 years. And if you have proven it for at least 3 years, then, that's where when I work with folks, we go very purposely through the Ready, Set, Certify framework that I've developed that really is laying out all facets of a certification. It's the other thing I say about the certification model is it's not one to just throw at the wall and see what sticks. Like I mentioned, I did that in the early days, but there wasn't really anybody else doing certification in those days either. So I literally was like making it up. But there's too much at risk to just make it up as you go, because this is your IP. This is your assets. These things are valuable. And if you put them out there in a world where they either get misused or people aren't being properly trained, or you don't have the right legal things around it, you don't have the right standards, you don't, Like there's so many ways that ultimately the risk of a certification is a reputation risk.
Right.
And if you create a poorly done certification, it could destroy a reputation that somebody worked really hard to build. So I'm definitely a visionary person. There's times where I like to just throw things out there and see what happens. I've created many programs that way over the years, but certification is not one to do that way.
And that's a really valid point about the threat of, your reputation being at risk there, because I remember a time we had a client come to us and they were losing money left and right because they were following a methodology from a coach and it didn't work in their market, in their geographical market, because they were like, do this, hire this person and have these funnels going. And when I looked at it, I said, the reason you're losing money is because that might have worked over there on the East Coast. You're in Central. It doesn't work here. Your demographics are different. And so that 3 years would have flushed those things out had the coach spent the time to do that and done the due diligence on it.
Absolutely. And even like the brand part of it too, people will ask me about, that's the biggest concern people will have about this model is like, what if I certify someone and they suck? That's basically the biggest fear. It ultimately it's a mix of various things to like get to a point where A, ideally that doesn't happen. And B, if it does happen, you have recourse around it too. And really it's a mix of, this is why I developed, the whole reason I got into the certification consulting side, like helping people with certification and licensing is again similar to what started the Certified OBM program. Was like people were coming to me like, oh, Tina, you created a certification. They'd be like, can I ask you a question?
Can I pick your brain?
Yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much more you need to know than just this one thing. And over the years, and then when I officially, just a few years ago now, I officially focused solely on this now with the work I'm doing. But it became this, was also kind of following that trail of breadcrumbs a little bit too. But really with certification, like if you're clear on who the right fit is, what they're getting, what they can and can't do with it, you have really solid training. And I will say this from a training perspective, that a pre-recorded video and a Q&A call does not a certification make, despite what many folks who teach about creating training and courses out there will say. It's not adult learning best practices. It's not effective for people. With a certification, you need people coming out the end of your program actually, and you being able to know that they know what they're doing, not just that they watched a video or read something or whatever. Like that's not effective. You got to have strong testing. You got to have all your legal ducks in a row. You need to have your standards. You need to have all these things in place. And really, and I will say with those things in place, then, ultimately the success of the people coming out of your program is the success of the certification. Like if you're certifying a bunch of people and they can't be successful with it on the other end, well, then that's a problem. So like their success is our success. That's the ultimate measure of this. But also if and when there are problems, we want to be able to have some recourse around those things too. And, that's another thing I'll say, which I think applies to business at large, but certification in particular, like get your legal ducks in a row.
Yeah, 100%.
I've had to take, legal action in a few circumstances just based on things where I would not have had any recourse at all if I did not have my legal stuff in a row. Yeah. My trademarks, my agreements, all those things, right? Like that's the not so fun side of business. But one circumstance in particular could have been very, very destructive to the business.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to, especially like I see so many business owners coming together, forming partnerships, joint ventures. It's like spend the time and the money, because yes, you're going to spend some money up front, but get those agreements in writing. If this, then this, if this, then this, if this, then this. It makes the running of the business so much easier, actually, because there's no black, there's no gray. Everything is black and white. and everybody knows where they stand. And same thing, with the certification. I think your people are so much more successful when they know, here's the box that I operate in, and I don't go out of that box, and I've read that and agreed to it up front, and it's very clear.
Yep.
So I completely agree.
Yeah. And, I remember years ago, someone telling me, or a legal or a lawyer that I followed that was like, an agreement is for planning for the end of the relationship. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting to think about, because it's just, the expectations along the way too, but also like what happens if or when this ends. And so, because even from a certification perspective, I'm also a believer in the certification model in having renewals. Like people pay a renewal fee of some kind that can vary depending on the program and different things, like the amount and the structure of that can vary, but that they're paying at least like an annual renewal of some kind to maintain their certification. Even from a business model perspective, like a certification without renewals is just a glorified training, because then you're in the position of having to constantly launch and fill your program. Otherwise, you're not making any money. And that's fine. Like that's what the training model is. But that's a certification, though, like part of what's allowed me to not have to, like, to be, I say, a little bit semi-retired for a number of years now, is because as we built up our community over time and people are paying renewals, that's like recurring income that's happening. In our case, on an annual basis, they pay annually to renew that. But that piece too is also part of the standards as well. Like, because people are continuing to renew and be a part of the community, if they leave the community, and people do, that happens, they go on to other things, etc., they're no longer a certified OBM at that point. And that's made very clear in the agreement as well. It's like part of maintaining your certification is continuing to, pay your renewals and get access to these things and so on. And that, again, is part of the agreements. Like there's times where they'll cancel and be like, well, what do you mean? I can't be a certified OBM. It's like, okay, it was here. We talked about it here. We did this, we did that. Like, people don't remember things. I don't remember things either half the time, but just the importance of having those very clear, like, expectations and such as part of as part of what we put out there. Very important with certification. Whew, too much at risk otherwise.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I mean, I love that you're building in reoccurring revenue, because that's the best kind of revenue. And you're also giving yourself options as far as, like, if they're not upholding their side of the certification agreement, then you don't have to recertify them. And we
thankfully only had 3 times that we've had to remove people from the community. And it was based on very, like, egregious type things that they were doing, where it was like, meh. And it was actually a lot based on our pledge of ethics too. So it's like, oh, you're doing this? Okay, you're getting booted out, kind of thing. So yeah, but it's part of it too, because again, that's the value, part of the value of the brand and the asset is maintaining that integrity of it. Again, I'll see people, there's a lot of certification programs out there that are a one-time payment. It's like, oh, I just paid once and now I'm certified for life. And it's like, not only is there lost revenue there, in my opinion, there's a missed opportunity to, like, build in some of that recurring revenue and such for the founder over time. But it's also like at this stage in the game, the first people we certified are 16 years ago. Like, how would you even know what they're doing or not doing, or how they're showing up? Like, if they were still, if they're not a part of the community anymore, but they're still certified with that title, it's like, we'd have absolutely no control over anything that they're doing.
And back to, that's your brand. You've got to protect it.
Yes.
So you got to build in those protections into the model. Yeah. Love that. I think that's so smart. Well, Tina, this has been an awesome conversation, and I hope all of our listeners are taking lots of notes. And if this lines up with something that any of you guys are thinking, yeah, this sounds like I want to learn more and implement this in my business, how can they reach out to you, Tina, or learn more about the certification process?
Yeah, you can find me on my website is tinaforsyth.com. I've also got a fair number of videos on YouTube that some folks find helpful just to kind of dig into certain aspects of it. And or especially if you're in a space of like, is this for me? Is it not for me? Like, I want to learn a little bit more about it and such. There's some really helpful stuff there on YouTube. And by all means, anybody's welcome to reach out and email me to just TinaForsyth.com comes to me personally. I'm always happy to connect with folks around the certification model, whether it's something you're just kind of like, curious about, and or if it's something where you're a little more serious about it, by all means, would love to connect.
Perfect. And we'll put all of those links in the show notes as well. And Tina, thank you so much for your time today. This has been such a great, insightful conversation. And I think all of our listeners should be looking at how am I building IP as an asset in my business? And then what is the lifespan of that after I'm done doing the doing of the day-to-day? So this has been really great. And thank you for sharing with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and review, and we'll catch you on the next episode. If you're looking for more content or resources in the meantime, check out our website for information, blogs, and our I've Got a Spreadsheet for That series. That's thecashflowcfo.com. Again, thecashflowcfo.com. We can't wait to hear from you.